And here we are with another episode of Underdog Leadership. Thank you so much for joining me. And what a juicy topic we have, asking for anything. Now, let's be honest. How many of you clicked on this because you're like, yeah, I need more of that in my life for sure. So as an underdog, we have this fear of asking for what we are worth. And that can be one of the most biggest obstacles for underdogs to really step out of their comfort zone and ask and invite something into their lives. They're sitting on the sidelines, hoping, oh, that's a good word, Jenny, hoping that someone will invite them in to play baseball, will invite them to apply for that improvement or that new post that's been posted at your work. So all of these opportunities waiting for someone to nudge them into action rather than inviting and taking action themselves. So this podcast episode is all about how you can set yourself up for expansion and growth. Because here's the kicker, people. All of the growth and the opportunities exist just outside your current comfort zone. And I don't care where you're at in your journey, whether you're at the beginning of your career, whether you're at the end of your career, whether you've already had a fantastic, amazing career, everything that you are looking to achieve is probably just on the edge of your growth opportunities. So I love the idea that we are always seeking that place, that little bit deeper. We're always seeking that opportunity to ask, or you'll learn in my language, invite more into your life. The word stretch, the word expand, those are words that I just embrace. Like, let me be honest, 2 years ago, I wasn't thinking about doing a podcast, right? But now that I'm here, as I'm expanding, this becomes the natural next step for Jenny Mitchell. So putting it another way, it's that idea of courage over comfort. Every one of us gets complacent, gets comfortable. We know how to do things at work. We know how our businesses run. We know how we can lead as volunteers. It's that courageous place of doing something a little bit different. Maybe it's for some of you, it's letting go of the control of what you do know and expanding into something that's new and exceptional. So the second idea I want to introduce on this podcast around asking for anything is shifting our thoughts and our mindset around the word asking, because I actually think the word asking sets up a real problem in the way we talk. Asking implies that someone has to give something up to give it to you. And what I'd like to suggest today is think of the word asking and substitute it for inviting. How can you invite people into whatever it is you're selling or exposing them to? For me, it could be inviting people in to coach with me. For some of you who are my fundraiser folks, it's inviting in the largest investment that their family has ever done into healthcare, into puppies. We love puppies, into social services, into homelessness, into addiction services. That invitation to make a difference versus asking them for money. Do you see how that lands? It's just so different. And this invitation can work on so many levels. And I think that's why on the podcast, when people ask me, who is this podcast for? I always say number twos who are looking to lead as number ones, because we need to be comfortable getting uncomfortable. Inviting in our staff to a vision, a future place, rather than asking them or telling them. Inviting in our donors, as I've mentioned before. Maybe inviting our family to come along on, in my case, if you've heard me talk about my kitchen renovation, on what could be different in our house or how we could save for X, Y, and Z. And you betcha, inviting our bosses in to the change that we want to see happen at our offices and for our employees. So part of this asking versus inviting is you have to get comfortable with the fact that it is okay if they say no. So let's just unpack this a minute. So part of the asking and inviting and stretching is it's okay if people say no. This is not a personal affront to us, but it is our job to expose and invite. And I think that's like really important, like head trip. just like we're expanding, they also have sovereignty. We're never going to bankrupt someone from a gift. That's something I always say as a fundraising coach. People get choice. It's not like we're going to ask them for $1,000,000 and they're going to bankrupt themselves in order to make that happen. They have sovereignty over their decisions as well. So I think the biggest fear for any underdog, or at least the people that I tend to work with, is the idea that by asking for more, we would ruin a relationship. And this feels like a perfect place to tell a client story. I was working with a young professional on a money archetype assessment. If you've heard me talk, I love and am passionate about money mindset. And so in this archetype assessment, she had identified through her quiz that she was a connector. Now, a connector is somebody who builds wealth through relationships. So they understand and appreciate the people around them. And in general, their wealth comes from partnerships and relationships that are existing. These are the kind of people that have fantastic businesses or fantastic careers purely on the strength of the relationships they've built. They may not even have a strong marketing arm because they value their friendships, and their money and their wealth and their relationships come through there. And so as a connector, this is kind of cool. Her biggest fear, when I asked her, what's your biggest fear about inviting in more, inviting a bigger gift from your donors? She said, well, I'd hate for them to think I was only in the relationship for the money, right? So that fear of breaking off a relationship or breaking trust with someone was their biggest fear. And I said, how interesting is that? You who are the person who are so good at that, that is also the flip side, your worst fear. And so I asked her, what belief could you cultivate that would shift your mindset around that? Because right now she cannot go in and ask for more, guys, right? If you're listening, because her biggest fear is that they're going to say no and they're going to hate her forever. And that is one of her core values, is that relationships matter. So here's the kicker, and here's the really cool part. What we did was we shifted her belief, and the new belief she was cultivated was, my invitation to have them stretch and make a bigger gift was actually the beginning of an even deeper relationship. Okay, hold on. Let's say it again. When I invite someone to make an even bigger gift or an bigger investment, our relationship has the potential to deepen. Wow. And she just sat on the call and she's like, yeah. So if you're listening and if you're thinking about all those times in your life where you stopped yourself, you paused before inviting investment or asking for the gig or asking for the promotion or talking to your boss, hoping they would say, yes, Jenny, of course you're the obvious person for that promotion. Think about how you could invite them to envision a world where you stepped into that promotion and how it could deepen your relationship. I think underdogs often think that we don't want to be greedy. We want to earn it. We want to earn it from the sidelines. And I am here from the bottom of my heart. I can't say this strong enough. It's okay to ask. And I don't know who needed to hear that today, but go for it. And here's the other really, really cool part about asking. Once you ask once, it becomes more and more comfortable to ask. And you know what else is really cool is on the flip side, when people ask you for things, you realize that you have sovereignty over that decision. Jenny, can I pick your brain about X, Y, and Z? Would you come to this volunteer meeting on Thursday night, right? All these things that we get asked, we too have sovereignty to say yes or no. So one of the themes of this podcast, as I'm learning and as I'm growing with you, sharing my thoughts in this sort of solo podcast way, is we all have choices. I want to stand up for being a person who chooses how my day happens, who chooses who I spend my time with, who chooses what kind of clients I work with, who chooses what projects get done and what projects get put to the sidelines in Chavender. And I'm realizing more and more the simplicity of that decision really fuels a lot of the things that I used to worry about. And I should probably do a whole podcast on worrying, because I'm really good at worrying and really good at getting anxious and living in the what ifs. But if we choose choice, if we always stay true to what we desire and what those whispers are, we cannot go wrong. And asking for more or inviting in change is one of those pieces that makes it happen. So I guess this is a great spot, dear listeners, to pause and say, what in your life are you inviting more of? What in your life can you see and identify that you'd like changed or shifted or bringing in more? Something I've been having with my husband lately is conversations about vacations. If you don't, I don't know about you, life moves so fast. You got so many parts on your plate during the day, and then there's dinner and all that chaos. I am making a real intention with my partner to talk about where we want to go with our lives, to talk about our vision for our vacations. And it's been so amazing because as we talk about it, it becomes real, right? When we talk about it, it has legs to it. It's not just a pipe dream. And then when I go back to my business, I realize what I'm doing my business for is to bring those experiences and those opportunities. It's like the choice of one thing prompts other choices in other parts of my life. We all have this sort of internal momentum chart or clock. I see it as like a little dial, right, in our chests. And the momentum clock kind of ebbs and flows. You know where you're at with your work or with your business or with your fundraising right now. Are you at the sort of 0-1 part of the compass, or are you at the 9-10 part of the compass? I used to call this in some of my old workshops the fundraising mojo factor, right? That mojo is that unidentifiable thing that helps you, has a bounce in your step, helps you get to work. When you sit down at your desk, you're invigorated to go tackle X, Y, and Z, right? And invite in investment. The flip side of that is being in ho-hum mode, right? Complacency mode. That place where you could do a lot of things, but you're kind of dialing it in. And so it seems very appropriate to all of you out there to ask yourself the question, are you dialing it in? Are you at a 1-2? Are you more like hopping around like the Easter Bunny, looking forward to the next strategic file you can tackle? And that would be more of a 9-10. And similarly, how could you reignite your work today? I think we all think we're waiting for the, what are they called? The fire bolts from Zeus and Olympus to come down and smack us on the side of the head and make these massive changes. All the research, if you look at Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, if you look at James Clear, Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books, it's encouraging and depressing at the same time. Those small little things that we do every day actually directly influence our own personal success. The time you get up in the morning, the way you prepare your day, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of podcast you listen to. I hope Underdog Leadership is one of your favorite podcasts to get ready in the morning. The kinds of energy, the kinds of thoughts you have in your head shape and color the world you're living in. Oh my gosh. Incredible, right? So finding those small incremental steps. I recently did a presentation with a colleague of mine, and it was called Let's Be Honest, Things You Can and Cannot Control as a Professional Fundraiser. When I work with coaching clients, I find we're trying to control, and I'm going to own that myself. I just think it's fair to be honest. Let's be honest. We try to control things that are uncontrollable, right? We try and carve or shape or drive the way some meeting is going to go. I'm not talking about not having an agenda or not having a plan. I'm talking about releasing the expectation of where that meeting's going to go, right? We can control how we prepare for it, but then it is our responsibility to be present and true and authentic and trusting that the meeting goes where it's supposed to go. Wow, that's a big one, right? So if you're struggling with reigniting your work, what is one small change you can make? I work with senior leaders all the time, and they'll say to me, I'm bogged down in meetings. I just can't get any quiet time. And I say, with love, that's a story. That's a story you are repeating and prophesizing. And when you repeat it, it becomes truth. So what is the new truth you want to have for yourself and for your work? Where can you make a change? Do you need to set up half-hour meetings? Do you want to finish every hour meeting at 45 minutes so that you have 15 minutes to regroup? Can you carve some time in the morning? How are you setting your intentions for the day? It's almost like the workday is attacking you rather than you setting the boundaries and the tone for the workday. You always have choice, right? That is the message for today's podcast. Okay. So as I regroup, as I sort of connect the dots for this podcast, we started with the concept of asking for anything. We started with the idea that it's okay to ask for more. So where in your life, pause, where in your life today are you thinking about inviting in more into your life? Because usually, point number 2, this requires you to choose courage over comfort. It requires you to stretch. It requires you to try something you've never done before. I use the example of the podcast. It's not like 2 years ago I was thinking about, Jenny Mitchell, you should start a solo podcast, right? So remember that stretch point is an invitation. And instead of the fear kicking in, oh my God, that feels uncomfortable. Oh, how many people are going to be in the audience? Oh, look, I'm feeling a little tingly. That must be an opportunity to stretch myself, an opportunity to try things. I can't control where it's going. I can't control the outcome, but I can absolutely control my relationship to it and how I show up. Remembering those core beliefs, keeping an eye on the barriers that are holding you back from the actions that you often know will propel your success forward, but you get caught up or hung up on things. Note to self, notice them. The invitation versus the ask. I really believe in the power of language. How can you invite people into something? Invite people into a community, invite them into a vision for your organization rather than asking them for something, which implies intrinsically that they give up something for you to receive. Invitation, expansion, and finally, getting really clear, dear listeners, on what it is you want. I should do a podcast on manifestation because it's been lately something I've thought a lot about. The idea that the universe is listening along, just like Facebook with its ads, right? You go look at stretch pants, and all of a sudden Facebook is full of stretch pants ads and leisure wear when you're scrolling, looking at your friends. But getting super clear in your mind about what you're inviting in and what you'd like more of. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, it starts to show up in your world. So here's a request from me to you. As you're finishing this podcast and as you're sort of going about your day, what was it you thought about the invitation for more? And did it manifest? Did it come around? Did somebody reach out to ask you for that or seek advice about that? Would you do me the favor of letting me know? You can always reach me at jenny@chavender.com. That's Jenny at Chavender, like lavender, spelled the same way, except with the CH at the beginning. I'd love to hear your stories. And I will leave you here with the reminder that all the good, juicy, awesome, amazing experiences, money, love, curiosity, expansion, exercise, capacity, it all lives just beyond your reach. How are you going to go get it today? Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.